She made touching jokes for a scared boy, but what the millionaire CEO discovered was incredible. Ellen stood at the front of her classroom, a bright smile illuminating her face as the leaves danced outside. It was late autumn, the trees now golden, and the little red schoolhouse felt alive with energy. But beneath her cheerful demeanor lay an undercurrent of turmoil. Each day was a circus, juggling work as a waitress while nurturing her students in a space that should be a sanctuary, but now felt suffocating. Timmy, a timid boy with wide eyes and a stutter that refused to disappear, sat petrified during speech exercises. Ellen's heart ached for him. She remembered the fear that sipped into her own life after the loss of her husband. "Why did the math book look sad?" she had joked, breaking away from the somber silence. Laughter bubbled in the air, momentarily lifting the weight in the room. But just like that, it was merely a Band-Aid over an open wound, one that came with unspoken debts and emotional fatigue. With each grin she coaxed out of Timmy, Ellen felt a flicker of hope igniting within her, yet it paled against the looming dread of bills piling on her dining table at home. This classroom was her escape and her prison, and she was constantly battling her own ghosts while trying to save those of her students. But she couldn't fail, not again. "Bigger, better jokes for bigger, better, brave," she told Timmy. But deep down, Ellen felt the hollowness of her own bravado. Tension simmered beneath her skin as she watched him fidget, his nervousness washing back over her like a tide. Would she ever truly break through to him? What if her own fears stifled his growth as a person? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In the midst of this chaotic emotional whirlwind arrived Jonathan, a slick corporate millionaire seeking out ways to donate to small-town schools while preparing for a gala that just felt empty. As he observed the vibrancy of Ellen's classroom, something shifted in him. He had smiled that same practiced smile at board meetings, but this felt different, warm, real. Yet the weight of his own success gnawed at him viciously. He was hyper-aware of his tailored suit as he watched Timmy lose himself in Ellen's playfulness. An ache bubbled inside Ellen as Jonathan's gaze roamed the room, contemplating the very heart she had poured into this place. Here was a man stumbling through her life who could help erase her fears, yet also represent everything she felt at odds with. Could Jonathan's presence provide a lifeline, or would it ruin the fragile bubble of joy she crafted? What if he saw disarray where she craved discovery? Standing at a precipice of possibility, her breathing quickened, heart racing, muscles tensed with uncertainty. What if they didn't just watch her world through stained glass, but aimed to tear down those walls? As she looked into Jonathan's eyes, something deep within her crumbled. The stakes felt impossibly high. Would she bend toward a burgeoning friendship, or shield her heart from yet another potential failure? In that moment, decisions loomed large, and the unrelenting tide of life washed over her, igniting a battle she hadn't anticipated. Ellen's heart raced as Jonathan's gaze lingered on her, caught between admiration and an unease that seemed to stretch the very fabric of her carefully maintained composure. She sensed the uncharted territory ahead, the unfamiliar spark of potential threatening to ignite her fears or inspire new growth. As she struggled to maintain her smile, her mental landscape was a whirlwind of doubt and longing. Could she trust him? A man of his stature surely lived in a realm disconnected from her reality. And yet, here he was, eyes bright with genuine curiosity. With every second that passed, Ellen felt an urge to dive deeper into conversation, to explore what was hidden behind that refined exterior. Yet the voices of caution echoed louder, urging her to shield her heart. After all, vulnerability had led her to pain before. "Timmy, why don't you give it another try?" Ellen urged, trying to redirect her thoughts toward her student, but Jonathan's presence loomed larger than life. Timmy looked up, his small face etched with uncertainty, teeth biting into his bottom lip. Ellen loved him fiercely. She wanted to wrap him in encouragement, but his hesitation struck a chord. Was she projecting her own fears onto him? A spiral of guilt ensued. Would her own battles suffocate his potential? Jonathan leaned forward, eyes narrowing in contemplation. The shift in his demeanor transformed the atmosphere, suddenly feeling more intimate. "Maybe if you let him know that it's okay to be scared, he would feel safer to try," he suggested, an unexpected depth in his tone. Ellen felt a pang of gratitude mixed with irritation. He wasn't just an outsider, he was a potent reminder of the very walls she had built around her heart. "Right, but what if I also forget to teach him resilience?" she countered, her throat tightening around her words. As she voiced her fears, it became clear that she was fighting against her own instincts. Her role as an educator was wrapped in her self-worth. "Resilience comes from facing those fears, doesn't it?" he replied, not backing down, the steel in his voice stirring something inside her. Ellen found herself contemplating his words. What if she embraced vulnerability instead of fearing it? Wasn't that the essence of her work, teaching kids to be brave in the face of their challenges? Her thoughts turned inward. Ellen had once been bold, a beacon of light, but life's weight had dulled her shine. Jonathan's presence was inadvertently igniting something, a determination buried under layers of trepidation. What if it was time to redefine her narrative, to peel back the layers of fear that were crippling not just her, but also her students? As she positioned herself more deliberately between Jonathan and Timmy, she noticed the tension leaving her shoulders. Each breath felt lighter, as if a cloak of expectation was being cast aside. "Let's do it together, Timmy," she encouraged softly. "I'll be here with you." In those words lay a burgeoning bridge, not just between her and her student, but also a potential connection to Jonathan. He was no longer just a wealthy stranger. He could be an ally. The realization ignited a warmth, something new to anchor her in the uncertainty that loomed ahead. Ellen faced Jonathan, gratitude mingled with determination. "You might just have a point there," she admitted, the corners of her mouth twitching into a genuine smile. The potential for growth was palpable, but so was the throat-clenching apprehension looming before her. What if she leaned into this collaboration? What if Jonathan's insights opened doors within her she had long thought closed? The moment flickered like the autumn leaves outside, full of possibility but tinged with the fear of change. As her resolve solidified, the future unfolded enigmatically. Would she be able to navigate this new chapter? And what changes would unfold within her if she faced the truths of her own vulnerabilities head-on? Ellen's breath hitched, knowing that soon enough she would have to confront the inevitable questions. The balancing act of friendship and professionalism was on the horizon, and she wondered, was she ready to step over the threshold? Ellen's mind whirled in a kaleidoscope of possibilities as she focused on Timmy. He wrung his small hands together, still hesitant. "Okay, Timmy, let's do this," she reiterated, her voice steady despite the tumult within. She could feel Jonathan's piercing gaze shift to her, expecting her to take the lead as a teacher, as a guide. "Just remember, it's okay to feel scared. Everyone does sometimes," she continued, heart pounding as she let those words sink into her own consciousness. They were meant for Timmy, but she was eerily aware of how much she needed to hear them too. As she said it aloud, she felt the weight of shame that had tethered her for so long start to lose its grip. Timmy blinked. "Really?" he asked, looking for confirmation, his voice shaky. Absolutely. You know what? It's like riding a bike. It's scary at first, but once you do it, you can't help but feel proud of yourself. A small smile crept onto Timmy's face, a flicker of hope illuminating his previously anxious countenance. Ellen noticed Jonathan's appreciative nod, an acknowledgement that resonated deeply. His presence, previously intimidating, now felt like a buoy strapped to her weary heart. She could almost hear the silent, encouraging words he sent her way. "You're doing great." Just then, the hesitant little boy took his first tentative step toward the activity. Ellen's pulse quickened at the prospect of unlocking Timmy's potential. But underneath that excitement lay the entwined fear of what might happen if she failed. What if she was not enough? "All right, Timmy, ready for another try?" Ellen prompted, kneeling to meet him at eye level, her resolve hardening. She watched with bated breath as he nodded. Their engagement became smoother as they ventured through the task before them. Ellen felt the joy of teaching surge within her, pulling her focus from the trepidation that had bubbled close to the surface. Yet her awareness of Jonathan did not dissipate. Instead, it settled in her gut, shifting from a source of tension to a kind of motivation. She sensed his expectation. Her heart raced as she recognized that he was not merely a spectator, but an active part of this fragile moment of revelation. "That's it! You're doing it!" she exclaimed, as Timmy tried again, his determination ignited by Ellen's encouragement. With each repetition, she fought against her own doubts, battling the specter of failure lurking in the corners of her mind. Jonathan shifted in his seat, clearly impressed. He took a slow, deliberate breath, as if gripped by the moment, and Eden could feel the air thicken around them. The unspoken challenge remained: navigate this delicate moment without blurring the line that defined her relationship with both her student and Jonathan. In that charged environment, Ellen wrestled with the thought of what would come next. What if Jonathan decided to get involved? What if he wanted to share his insights with the children, or, God forbid, his wealth? She wanted to keep her world separate, to protect the sanctity of her teaching space. Yet she grappled with another reality. Could collaborating with someone like him offer fresh perspectives? Would it lead her down a path of personal growth that she had avoided for too long? Ellen's heart betrayed her with the thrill of what-ifs, and a sudden question emerged. Could vulnerability become her greatest strength instead of the burden she feared? Just then, Timmy beamed, triumph radiating from his small frame. "I did it, Miss Ellen," he declared, and as his smile reached her, she felt a shift inside. Ellen returned the smile fiercely. "You sure did, and look how far you've come." In that moment, she resolved to confront the uncertainties waiting just beyond the threshold of her rigid personal boundaries, to risk stepping into the unknown. Embracing this collaboration with Jonathan felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She knew she was at the cusp of a turning point. As she glanced at Jonathan, she saw there was more than professional admiration in his eyes. A mix of intrigue and encouragement flickered there, and she couldn't help but wonder, how much further could she push both Timmy and herself? Tomorrow would bring another chance to explore these evolving dynamics. What would happen when the walls further began to crumble and trust started to take root? Ellen braced herself for the conversations ahead, knowing she had to be ready to face the unexpected truths waiting to be unearthed. The next day unfolded like an uncharted map, anticipation buzzing in Ellen's chest. As she entered the classroom, she could feel the weight of yesterday's success still clinging to her skin, yet mingling with the familiar anxiety she had grown to accept. The room, bathed in soft morning light, felt both a sanctuary and a stage. Timmy beamed at her from his seat, a small, triumphant spark igniting within him, and mirroring the shift she felt in her own heart. "Good morning, Miss Ellen," Timmy called out, his voice clear and bright. She smiled back, buoyed by his enthusiasm. "Good morning, Timmy. Ready for another adventure today?" Ellen noticed the other children wandering in, their faces painted with youthful curiosity. Each one represented a blend of potential and uncertainty, and she felt invigorated by the chance to guide them, though she was becoming acutely aware that this collaborative energy between her and Jonathan was changing the dynamic of her teaching. The door creaked open, and there was Jonathan, his composed demeanor contrasting sharply with the vibrancy of the classroom. Ellen's heart sank slightly. She had prepared herself for their potential collaboration, but the reality of his presence stirred a cocktail of excitement and apprehension within her. "Ellen," Jonathan addressed her, sincerity coloring his voice, "I was thinking about how we could build on yesterday's success with Timmy." Before she could respond, her mind raced through an array of scenarios. Did he plan to upend her teaching style? Would this interaction shift her carefully curated space into something more transactional? She breathed deeply, determined to frame the moment positively. "Perhaps we could start by gathering everyone's ideas about what they'd like to learn today." With renewed purpose, she approached the whiteboard, inviting the children to contribute their thoughts. Ellen turned to Jonathan, hopeful that they could articulate a shared vision that would bolster the class without losing her voice. He nodded, joining her at the board, pencil in hand, ready to write. The children's ideas sprang forth: a wildlife project, an exploration of physics through simple machines, even stories they wanted to tell. Each suggestion ignited Ellen's passion to help them navigate new discoveries. She couldn't help but notice how Jonathan's approval felt different now, less like scrutiny and more an affirmation of her capabilities. "Great concepts, everyone," Ellen encouraged, sweeping her eyes over the room, inviting each shy child into the spotlight. "Jonathan, what do you think of this idea about building a mini garden?" She observed their interaction closely, searching for the telltale signs of conflict or blending. Jonathan reviewed the children's suggestions with an analytical eye, and Ellen felt a flicker of vulnerability. Part of her longed to reclaim complete ownership over the classroom, yet another part questioned her understanding of true collaboration. Little by little, she wrestled with how this could stretch her skills and understanding. "I love that. Gardening could teach them about biology and responsibility," Jonathan replied, nodding thoughtfully. "We could even integrate technology by recording the progress on a blog." Ellen's pulse quickened. The idea was exciting, yet confronting. Merging her world with his came with inherent risk. Could she handle sharing her teaching space with someone who possessed such a different approach? She wrestled with the thought. Saying yes felt easy, but accepting his particular methodology challenged her deeper convictions about education. "Okay," she said cautiously, "let's see how it goes." The moment crystallized, and Ellen felt the tension of her earlier apprehensions softening. This was a challenge, but great growth often lay within discomfort. In the days that followed, she began noticing changes within her pedagogy. As Jonathan introduced tech tools, her students flourished. Each success propelled her deeper into a journey of discovering not just how to teach, but how she might learn alongside her students. However, she couldn't shake the sense of uncertainty about what it meant to co-lead with him. With every breakthrough, envy resurfaced. She felt torn between admiration and apprehension. Would he begin to overshadow her voice? She longed to explore the intersection of their teaching philosophies, yet feared losing the essence of her approach. Ellen's heart raced as she planned a meeting with Jonathan, knowing the next conversation could define their collaboration in unforeseen ways. How would she articulate her boundaries and aspirations while respecting his ideas? Tomorrow held promise and tension. As she prepared her thoughts, she couldn't help but wonder what hidden capacities she might discover within herself when facing the fine line between collaboration and independence. Would she ultimately find her voice, or risk losing it altogether? Ellen's palms were slightly sweaty as she reviewed her notes, practicing the words she hoped would convey her thoughts clearly without sounding confrontational. The classroom was buzzing with excitement. an atmosphere she had cultivated gradually but was now tinged with uncertainty. She wondered if her students could sense her internal turmoil, their innocent energy a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the day, the children hurriedly gathered their belongings. Ellen stood by the door, greeting each student, while her heart thudded in resonance with her thoughts about the meeting to come. "Miss Ellen," Timmy said, clutching a crumpled piece of paper, "I drew a picture of the garden. Can you see it?" As Timmy held out the drawing, Ellen's heart swelled. This was why she had pursued teaching, to unlock moments of creativity and joy in her students. However, as she witnessed Timmy's enthusiasm, the shadow of her insecurities loomed larger. Would she be able to uphold that joy when she wasn't certain of her own role? "That's amazing, Timmy. I love the colors you used," she praised, her smile genuine yet shadowed by her forthcoming conversation with Jonathan. Once the classroom emptied, Ellen collected her thoughts and breathed deeply. She and Jonathan were scheduled to meet in the teacher's lounge, a neutral ground where they could discuss their teaching methods and the concerns that had been bubbling under the surface. This wasn't merely about establishing boundaries. It was about claiming the space she had worked so hard to create and sharing it authentically. Jonathan arrived promptly, the corners of his mouth curving into a polite smile. "Ellen, thanks for making time for this," he said, his voice smooth, but Ellen couldn't shake the sense that she was always measuring up to him. "Of course," she replied, her pulse pounding. "I think it's essential that we address how we can blend our teaching styles." Jonathan leaned back, contemplating her words. "I appreciate that. I've really enjoyed the technological tools we introduced, and I've noticed how engaged the kids are." His affirmation hung in the air, but Ellen felt a tension tightening in her chest. This was it, the moment to speak her truth. "I have enjoyed that too," she started, gathering her courage. "But I need us to talk about how things are moving forward. I feel like I'm struggling to maintain my voice within the classroom. It's a thrill to collaborate, yet sometimes I feel overshadowed." Jonathan's expression shifted from one of encouragement to contemplation. "I didn't realize you felt that way, Ellen. I thought we were building something together." Ellen's heart raced. His response had the potential to either mitigate her fears or exacerbate them. "That's the thing, Jonathan. Collaboration can be beautiful, but I also need to ensure that my philosophy isn't lost in the process. Can we find a way to balance both our methodologies without one overshadowing the other?" A flicker of understanding crossed Jonathan's face, but still she felt vulnerable, laying bare her insecurities. What if he didn't grasp the depth of her concern? "Absolutely, I see the value in that," he finally replied, a warmth entering his tone, as if they were tipping the scales toward mutual respect. "Maybe we could co-facilitate a lesson or create a project where each of us takes the lead alternatively?" Ellen felt a spark ignite within her, a small glimmer of hope. This could be the beginning of a truly collaborative relationship, rather than just adjacency. Yet a nagging thought remained. How deeply did she trust this shift? "Let's try that. I think it could work," Ellen agreed, reassured yet acutely aware that this newfound balance required more than mere dialogue. It would demand constant effort and awareness. As their meeting drew to a close, Ellen's mind swirled with the possibilities ahead. She was discovering the power of her own voice, yet the path seemed steep. Would she succeed in navigating this co-leadership without losing herself? Leaving the lounge, a fresh determination surged through her. The blend of their ideas could be revolutionary for the students, but would it truly transform her approach in a way that felt authentic? She would have to explore that in the days to come. The risk was daunting, but within the mixed feelings lay the possibility of significant growth. Ellen glanced back at the classroom door as she passed, the sunlight pouring in like opportunity. Tomorrow's lessons would demand courage, not just to collaborate, but to continually assert her identity as an educator. Days stretched ahead filled with uncertainty and potential. Would she emerge stronger, or would the weight of sharing this space suffocate her voice altogether? Tomorrow, she would learn a little more about the balance and boundaries she was beginning to forge. Ellen's first day implementing the new collaborative teaching strategy arrived, a mixture of excitement and anxiety thrumming beneath her skin. As she entered the classroom, the energy was palpable. Students buzzed with anticipation, ready for the lessons Jonathan had suggested. Yet the room also felt heavy with expectation, as if it were waiting for her to assert her presence. "All right, everyone. Today we'll be working on a project where you can express your understanding of our recent lessons through art and technology," she announced, her voice steadier than she felt inside. She noticed a few eyes darting to the door. Jonathan would join them shortly. As she began outlining the project details, Ellen focused on the artwork spread out on the tables. This was her domain. Creative expression thrived here. Yet doubt crept in when she remembered how Jonathan's enthusiasm often overshadowed her ideas. Could she be the guiding force today? Just as she finished explaining the expectations, Jonathan strolled in, casually charming but completely confident, eliciting a chorus of his name from the students. Ellen felt a familiar knot twist in her stomach, gnawing at the resolve she had built in the previous days. "Great to see everyone. I'm excited to see your projects," he chimed. The students shifted their attention, soaking up his energy. Ellen stood on the sidelines, battling the urge to shrink back. They broke the students into pairs. Ellen paired with a quieter student, Marcus, who tended to withdraw into himself. She sensed he needed a gentle push to engage. "Hey, Marcus, why don't we brainstorm some ideas together?" He fidgeted with a pencil, looking up at her with apprehension. "I'm not good at drawing," he whispered. "That's okay. It's not just about drawing. We can use pictures from magazines or even digital tools. Let's find something that speaks to you," she replied, hoping to draw out his creativity. As they started to sift through materials, Ellen felt the weight of her responsibility grow heavier. Marcus hesitated again. "But what if it's not good enough?" he asked, his voice trembling a bit. Ellen paused. His fear echoed her own insecurities. "You know, one of the best parts about art is that it doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be honest. Let's create something that reflects what you care about," she encouraged. The moment hung in the air, drawing a thread between their shared vulnerabilities. Marcus's eyes lit up, and for the first time he smiled, excitedly pointing to a tree in one of the magazines. "I love trees. They can mean a lot of things." "Yes, trees can represent growth, strength, and even creativity," she responded, her heart swelling. She could feel a shift. His confidence was slowly solidifying before her. In the corner, she noticed Jonathan effortlessly orchestrating excitement among a group, his plans unfolding seamlessly. Ellen's heart sank momentarily, but she reminded herself she was crafting a unique bond with Marcus, one that needed nurturing just as much as any thriving lesson plan. Once Marcus had gathered images, she marveled at the simplicity of his idea, a collage of trees that represented growth and courage. "You did this, Marcus. I see your strengths emerging through this," Ellen proclaimed, the pride evident in her voice. As they worked together, laughter bubbled up between them, the gap between educator and student narrowing. Time slipped away, and Ellen found herself lost in their project, reveling in the shared creation. However, just as she began to feel grounded in her role, a shadow eclipsed her light. Jonathan approached, arms crossed, voice casual yet probing. "Ellen, don't you think the students should see the technology integration more prominently?" he asked, barely hiding his suggestion of critique. In that moment, Ellen felt the familiar onset of doubt. Had she just overstepped in her endeavor to mold a genuine connection? She inhaled deeply, the air thick with implications. How could she balance Jonathan's expectations with the authentic engagement she had fostered with Marcus? Actually, I think the art aspect is key here. It's about self-expression, not just technology, Ellen responded, unsure but steadfast. Jonathan raised an eyebrow, a mix of surprise and challenge flickering across his face. Ellen recognized the tension. The moment felt like a crossroads, her confidence clashing with the necessity of external validation. What would she stand to lose if Jonathan's perspective silenced her newfound belief in the power of creativity? Tomorrow would demand not just collaboration, but the courage to defend her vision. Ellen's heart raced as she pondered this challenge, knowing that navigating this balance was crucial for both her identity and her students' growth. In reclaiming her space, what new realizations might she uncover about herself? As dismissal loomed, the weight of the next lesson settled over her like a blanket, a push for both self-assertion and vulnerability. Tomorrow, Ellen would continue to weave together the fabric of her teaching philosophy, but would she find the strength to navigate this delicate balance, or would uncertainty leave her questioning her own abilities once again? Ellen arrived for her second day reinvigorated, yet still apprehensive, her mind racing with the echoes of yesterday's struggles. As she walked down the hallway, the chatter of students faded into a muffle, and the walls seemed to narrow around her, amplifying her doubts. What if yesterday's fleeting moments of success with Marcus had just been a stroke of luck, a talented student meeting a halfway decent effort? Stepping into the classroom, she noticed Marcus already seated at their table, a subtle smile playing on his lips. It brought warmth to her chest, reminding her of their shared laughter. Today would be about building on those small victories, she decided. But how? Could she maintain a balance between her connection with Marcus and meeting Jonathan's standards? "Good morning, Marcus," she called, trying to project confidence she didn't fully feel. "Ready to finish up our project today?" "Yeah," he replied, voice steadier than she anticipated. As they began to work, Ellen felt a renewed sense of purpose taking root. This was her chance to cement her approach, the creativity, the engagement she wanted to channel through collaboration. She watched Marcus cut and arrange images, his hands steady this time. This wasn't about perfect outcomes, but about personal growth. Yet, just as she began to embrace her role, the door swung open. Jonathan's presence filled the space once more, his confident stride instantly commanding the room. Ellen's stomach churned. She felt herself shrinking again, the gravitational pull of his authority drawing her focus away from Marcus. "Morning, everyone. Great to see you all working hard," he beamed, directing his attention to the other groups. Ellen's heart raced as she stood, anchored in the moment, vocalizing her plans. "Today, we'll refine our projects and prepare to present them. I want to make sure. Ellen, how about we focus on how the students can effectively integrate tech in their presentations?" Jonathan interjected smoothly, redirecting the attention like a gentle tide. Ellen's breath caught, tension coiling within her. She now had to respond, not only to Jonathan, but also to the students. "I believe the presentation should reflect their unique processes and ideas, which might not always include technology." Jonathan studied her, his expression impassive. "But isn't it crucial that we teach them how to utilize all available resources? An effective presentation includes knowing how to use tools." Ellen felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Absolutely, but I think infusing creativity and passion is what makes a presentation memorable." The room was charged, students exchanging glances, as the discussion hung in the air like a taut string ready to snap. "Creativity and technology can coexist," Jonathan countered, his tone laced with an undercurrent of challenge. "But I think we should prioritize what's most effective for broader understanding." Ellen sensed the weight of the choice before her. Should she defend her pedagogical stance or let Jonathan's rational viewpoints guide her? The room shifted around her, a landscape of collaboration squeezed between expert advice and her instinct. "Marcus," she called over to him, seeking his insight, What do you think about mixing your ideas with some technology? How could we make your collage digitally presentable? His eyes grew wide, uncertainty returning. I don't know. I guess I didn't think of that. This isn't about right or wrong, Ellen reassured. It's about exploring new methods. We can blend creativity with technology without losing your artistic voice. She looked at Jonathan, a quiet challenge sparking between them. Finally, as the students began integrating their technology, Ellen felt the shift underfoot. In defending Marcus, she realized something within herself was also solidifying. Her voice mattered just as much as Jonathan's authority. After class, while the other students bundled up their projects, Ellen turned to Marcus. "How are you feeling about your presentation?" His face lit up. "I never thought I could use technology to show my art like this. Thank you, Miss Ellen." In that moment of connection, she recognized her path forward. She could weave together the threads of her convictions and Jonathan's pragmatism. But she also understood. Today's victory felt precarious, balancing between validation and personal belief. As she stepped into the corridor after dismissal, the lingering challenge of tomorrow loomed ahead. Would she be able to assert herself against Jonathan's expectations as the stakes continue to climb? The back and forth would not only test her teaching methods, but also her very identity. Tomorrow was not just about the lesson plans. It was about crafting her professional future. The storm of uncertainty gathered above her as a new, gripping thought coalesced. With all this pressure, what would she discover about resilience in the face of discourse? Ellen's third day began with a heaviness that clung to her as she entered the classroom. Despite the lessons she had navigated the day before, doubt dogged her steps, creating a taut string of anxiety within her. She believed she could successfully juggle creativity and Jonathan's emphasis on technology, but the reality of balancing both was beginning to feel more complex than expected. As she settled at her desk, she spotted Marcus looking particularly anxious today, fidgeting with his sketchbook. His fingers danced nervously over the cover, and she could see the unease etched on his face. The sudden flicker of reminiscence of yesterday's enthusiasm only deepened her concern. She needed to inspire confidence in him while simultaneously preparing for the ongoing tug-of-war with Jonathan. "Hey there, Marcus," she called, fostering a warm smile in her voice. "Ready to dive into our project? I think we're making great progress." I guess," he mumbled, his eyes downcast. What if I mess up the presentation?" Ellen felt the weight of his fear pressing against her own. The pressure to succeed was palpable, almost suffocating. But deep down, she understood there was yet another opportunity to strengthen her rapport with him, ensuring he saw her as a partner in this endeavor. "You won't mess it up. Remember, this isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about sharing what you love." For a moment, a flicker of uncertainty wavered in his eyes. But what if Jonathan doesn't like it? Ellen paused, considering the implications of Marcus's question. Jonathan's expectations loomed large, threatening to eclipse the creativity she wanted to nurture. "I know he's tough," she said carefully, "but what matters most is your perspective. No matter how he reacts, expressing yourself is what's important." Marcus looked less convinced, yet Ellen sensed that establishing this emotional connection was crucial to his growth. She needed to articulate her own vulnerabilities while nurturing his. Today, she resolved to create an environment where both of them could explore their fears together. Just then, Jonathan entered, exuding the usual confident charisma. Ellen steeled herself, preparing for the inevitable clash of philosophy. "I'm looking forward to seeing the students present," he declared, surveying the room. His eyes landed on her and narrowed slightly. "Ellen, we need to ensure they utilize technology optimally. Let's set a clear path for their presentations, shall we?" "Absolutely," she replied, trying to mask her unease. "But I'd also like to promote their personal voice in this process." He raised an eyebrow, a challenge lingering beneath his seemingly casual demeanor.
Personal voice is essential, yes, but how do we measure the effectiveness of expression without considering the tools available to them? Tension rippled through the classroom. Ellen felt cornered yet resolute. I believe that providing space for individuality may produce unique presentations that resonate more deeply, even without the latest tech trends. Instantly, her heart raced as she vocalized her belief, but she noticed Marcus looking on, uncertain. This wasn't just about defending a point, it was about setting a precedent for how she would establish her authority as an educator, especially in front of her students. Let's surround them with innovation, not just creativity, Jonathan countered, a hint of challenge coloring his voice. Feeling as if she were standing at the threshold of a profound shift in her career, Ellen looked to Marcus. Let's collaborate on a strategy that integrates both ideas. What do you think? Blend your artistic vision with technology in a way that amplifies your voice. His eyes brightened slightly, steering him from his previous fear. Could we maybe, use a projector to show images in a way that tells a story? Ellen's heart swelled. This was the moment she had hoped for. Exactly! You infuse the narrative with your art, and we'll illuminate the presentation with technology without overshadowing your creativity. As Jonathan scrutinized Ellen's approach with an analytical gaze, doubt intermixed with pride. Could she be enough to redefine the learning experience for her students against Jonathan's rigid standards? The class began, and sparks of creativity ignited all around, but inside her, the question loomed. Was she truly becoming the advocate she aspired to be, or was this just a temporary shift? The bell signaling end of the class rang through the hall, filling Ellen with both relief and anticipation. She had fought hard today, pushing against Jonathan's undeniable influence and advocating fiercely for Marcus. However, tomorrow's confrontation felt more imminent, a confrontation not just with Jonathan, but with her evolving professional identity. As she reflected while packing up, she realized the stakes had changed. What would be the defining moment that cemented her role as an educator against all odds? Would her attempts to champion creativity elevate her, or lead her into deeper questioning of her abilities? Tomorrow awaited, a battleground for both personal and ideological victories, and Ellen wouldn't back down without a fight. Ellen awoke the next morning, determination crackling like static in the air around her. The doubts from the previous day had coiled together, forming a palpable challenge she felt desperate to address. As sunlight poured through her window, illuminating the messy piles of notes and art supplies strewn about her apartment, she took a deep breath and focused on the day ahead.
The confrontation with Jonathan loomed menacingly, but so did her commitment to Marcus and the other students. Her mind raced through strategies as she brushed her hair. Ellen had to embody the advocate she sought to be, battling not only against Jonathan's rigid approach, but also against the internal fears that threatened to undermine her resolve. How could she inspire her students to break free from doubt when she herself felt tethered? At school, the atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of enthusiasm and trepidation. Students whispered and laughed, but every smile that touched Ellen's lips felt misplaced against the seriousness of her mission. She glanced at Marcus, who was seated in the back, nervously clutching his sketchbook, and her heart sank at the sight. She had to extinguish the fire of his fear and fan the flames of confidence in its place. During their designated project time, Ellen approached Marcus. "Want to brainstorm some ideas for your presentation together?" she asked, lowering herself to his level. His eyes widened, uncertainty battling with hope. What if it's not good enough? "Let's start small," she replied, adopting a gentle tone. "What's the core message you want to share? What inspires you?" As he began to articulate his thoughts, Ellen felt an unfamiliar surge of empowerment. Each word he spoke, muddied by uncertainty, was a step toward reclaiming his trust. Here she was, not just a teacher, but a listener and a guide. She chose to embrace this identity as a strength rather than viewing it as a potential weakness. In that moment, they were collaborators, partners in creation, united against larger forces outside the classroom. As time ticked away, Ellen began integrating her strategies seamlessly into the lesson, emphasizing that the blend of creativity and technology was not at odds, but rather synergistic. How about using digital art to enhance your storytelling through the projector? Marcus nodded, his initial nervousness melting away like morning frost under the sun. As the classroom thrummed with activity, Jonathan entered, sharp eyes scanning the room. Ellen felt a rush of anxiety, but channeled it into her resolve. Today wasn't about winning an argument, it was about embodying the educator she had declared herself to be. Marcus finished his sketch and began layering digital images on the projector, revealing characters he had once left unimagined. "Impressive work, Marcus," Jonathan said, but his tone lacked genuine warmth, tinged instead with skepticism. "But let's ensure we focus on measurable outcomes," he continued, disrupting the growing excitement. The tension in the room shifted, momentarily deflating the bubble of creativity Ellen had fostered. "Maybe the measure is the engagement they elicit," Ellen interjected, standing taller, her heart pounding in her chest. "Let's not lose sight of the passion that drives these kids to create. Sometimes what resonates isn't measurable by standard metrics." The challenge hung in the air, thick as fog. She could feel the divide deepening, but raising her voice meant confronting Jonathan, an unsettling prospect tinged with a mixture of fear and empowerment. Jonathan's eyes narrowed, the hint of a smirk playing on his lips. "Your noble intentions are admirable, Ellen, but results matter. What will ultimately be more beneficial for them?" A realization washed over her. This wasn't just a debate about teaching philosophy. It was about the identities they crafted as individuals. Ellen clearly saw the path before her. Maintaining her stance could redefine her authority, not only in this classroom, but also within herself. Was she ready to fight for that? The bell saved her from answering. Students scuttled out, leaving an air thick with unresolved tension. Ellen's heart continued to race, but instead of retreating, she sought to fortify her resolve. No longer would she sidestep confrontations. Every challenge from Jonathan became a stepping stone toward growth. As Marcus approached her, visibly proud and glowing, Ellen felt a surge of purpose. She'd not only equipped him with tools for his project, but also illuminated her own path forward. "Thank you, Miss Ellen," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet full of warmth. "I think I really am going to show who I am." Ellen smiled, but deep inside, she questioned whether she could seed growth in herself as well. What would tomorrow unveil in her continuing battle against Jonathan? And could she boldly assert her identity as an educator and advocate? The next day's evaluation loomed ominously, as her mind spun with reflections and possibilities, hinting at the unmistakable anticipation of what lay ahead. Would the confrontation propel her growth, or would it leave her questioning the very choices she made? Ellen awoke with a sense of clarity that had eluded her in the past weeks. Today was not just about the lessons or the clash of philosophies. It was about affirming her identity as an educator. As she walked toward the classroom, the sunlight splashed across her path, illuminating her resolve. She would not allow her voice to be stifled any longer. This was a new chapter, one that demanded her courage and authenticity. As she entered the classroom, she instantly noticed the palpable energy among her students. Their excitement was infectious, and she felt a swell of pride. Marcus beamed at her from the back, his art supplies neatly arranged and ready. She approached him, channeling the warmth she hoped would wrap around him like a shield. "Ready to showcase your work today?" she asked, meeting his gaze with unwavering confidence. "Yeah, I can't wait to show everyone," he replied, his enthusiasm a testament to the growth they had nurtured together. Ellen felt her own motivation intensify.
Today wasn't merely about individual successes. It was about creating an environment where each student's unique voice could shine.
As they prepared for presentations, Ellen found herself mentally rehearsing the balance she would strike between her approach and Jonathan's. She needed to embrace their differences while also asserting her principles. When Jonathan arrived, Ellen stood tall, determined to hold her ground. He greeted the students, but Ellen noticed a shift in how she perceived him. This was not a challenge to intimidate, it was an opportunity to collaborate. "Good morning, everyone. Excited to see what you've prepared," Ellen said with a bright smile, her voice steady. Jonathan joined in, but this time Ellen didn't feel diminished by his presence. Each student presented their projects, illustrating a marvelous integration of creativity and technology. As Marcus stood in front to share his digital collage of trees adorned with animated visuals, Ellen felt a surge of pride blossoming within her. "Look at how Marcus intertwines nature and art. It tells a story and conveys emotion," she stated, her voice resonating with warmth. Her students were engaged, their attention fixed on Marcus as he displayed his work with confidence. After the presentations, Jonathan commended the students for their initiatives, but quickly introduced metrics for evaluating their work. "While creativity is important, we must also quantify their learning outcomes so we can assess effectiveness," he proposed. Ellen could feel the tension creeping back in, but she remained unfazed. "Quantifying is valuable for certain aspects, Jonathan, but I believe that genuine understanding often transcends mere statistics. The emotional connections the students create through their work have enduring value." The words flowed like a river breaking free from confines, weighted but liberated. Jonathan's expression shifted. He seemed surprised by her assertiveness. The tension in the room hung thick yet electrified. This was the moment to confront every ounce of doubt that had haunted her. "Perhaps we can find a hybrid approach," he suggested, his tone a touch more accommodating. "We could present their projects quantitatively and qualitatively to give a fuller picture of their growth. You're right, emotional connections are essential." Ellen felt a tide turn within her. There was no need to be combative. Rather, it was about respect and recognizing each other's strengths. "Absolutely, Jonathan. It's essential to ensure our students feel their voices matter while still being open to constructive insights." As the day unfolded, Ellen witnessed her students' confidence bloom under the guidance of her nurturing spirit. They were not just presenting art, they were demonstrating their progress, reflecting the courage that she had instilled in them. Each success was a testament to her commitment to their growth, a victory that solidified her place in this role. In the end, as she departed the classroom, Ellen felt a profound transformation swell within her spirit. She had not only reclaimed her authority, but had forged a partnership built on mutual respect. The doubts that once anchored her had transformed into affirmations of her capabilities. A community of learners thrived under her guidance, recognizing not just each other, but themselves. Tomorrow would present its own challenges, but she now understood she was equipped to navigate them. She had proven to herself that teaching was not merely a profession, but a calling, a path of empowerment, both for her students and for herself. The realization hit her powerfully. She had successfully balanced creativity with structure, subverted her fears, and emerged as an assertive advocate for her students. Throughout this journey, she had discovered the essence of resilience, and with it, she felt a solid confidence emerge that was rooted in her authentic self. She prepared to walk into the future, letting her voice echo beyond the walls of the classroom, carving a brighter educational landscape for her students, with a satisfied smile that spoke of hard-fought triumph and unwavering commitment to the bright journey ahead. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Every insight counts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is crucial. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of standing together in this journey.